Alright, we got a motor in yesterday. We're going to go ahead and tear this apart this morning, take a quick look at it and see what we got. So this is a new motor with 800 miles on it and it failed. We're not going to mention where he had it built. I really don't know where he had it built. It was local. So he's got some nice pieces on it, some vintage speed linkage, vintage speed exhaust. It's a 1776. It's installed in a Type 3, which inherent runs hotter than a Type 1 or a bus usually, just because of the cooling arrangement and how the motor's packaged. So when you add bigger cylinders, you increase the compression for sure, and it's necessary to add some spacer under the barrel to get the compression at a reasonable amount for a Type 3, in Florida with 100-degree weather. The other problem with the Type 3 is the location of the oil cooler. It really impedes the flow over the 3/4 side cylinders. So the motor, it's got some things going against it. So you sort of have to design the motor around those issues. So let's take it apart and see what we got inside this puppy. So another mention, the customer mentioned that he bought an engine kit. It does have a counterweighted crank. It looks like it's 8 dowd. I don't know if it's forged or not. It has a forged flywheel. He said that the engine kit came with a 110 camshaft, which a 110 is okay, if you're trying to combat heat. It might not be the best camshaft selection. There's better out there. But that's what the kit came with, and then the builder decided to upgrade him to a 120. And a 120 is just completely wrong combination with a freeway flyer, because you're driving down the highway off the camshaft. And what I mean by off the camshaft is if you have a cam that has a power band from, let's say 2,500 to 7,000 RPM, 120 is probably good to 7. Usually starts pulling at about 3,000 RPM. It's sort of lazy down low. Well, a freeway flyer goes down the road at 2,400 RPM. So you're not where the camshaft's designed to operate as far as RPM band, and it's what we call off the camshaft. Well, that's what I was taught. The guy that taught me used to refer to that as off the cam, and it causes heat when you're going down the road. So that's a real problem. So not more than likely, we're definitely taking that out of there. And I have to be mindful that this guy just spent a lot of money having this done somewhere. And the bad part is this motor blew up. He went back to the guy that built it, and the guy should have took it apart and honored his work, but he didn't. And he told him the transmission was the issue. The transmission was going bad in his car, and he needed to buy a new freeway flyer. So he did. He bought a freeway flyer, and not only did he do that, he bought an 1835 that the guy had on the ground, ready to go, because he needed a motor, and it blew up too. So it's coming here. So we got 2 brand new motors with 800 miles on them or less, and that should never happen. If you build something and it blows up that soon, you should be curious as to what's going on. So I don't understand it. It's sad that it happens out there. It's sad that people spend money to have something done and then they don't get what they pay for. That's why we're doing this on video, so he's going to know exactly what's in here. And we're going to tune this. It's got a set of 40s on it, IDFs. So we're going to go through this motor, put the compression where I think it needs to be, make some changes, and we'll tune it, get it in the car, and get him happy where he can drive to shows and cruise the car around. The car's laid out on airbags, so it's a nice car. I don't know what we got going on here. This looks like some trickery. Got a little stud issue there. I have no clue. When I don't have a clue, it's not good. what they've done here. So somehow they have the oil cooler wedge mated over the stud. It's a 10 millimeter cooler jammed over an 8 millimeter stud. It should have a 6 millimeter stud there. Look at this, boys. It's no fun when your oil coolers swell up and you don't have any oil going to the cooler. Seen that issue before here. Both seals are the same way. It's definitely not good. We're going to put an external cooler on this. Under the car with a fan. Yeah, that's just amazing. Okay, I'll be right back with you guys. Don't go anywhere. It's going to get good. I always think I grab the right tools when I do this, but yeah, I'm always surprised. You always get a curve thrown at you with a Volkswagen. Let's find our 10 millimeter in our organization over here. We're going to whip this distributor out, get it out of the way. Here comes Andrea. She wants to be in the video. All right, have fun, love you. You can give me some nuts and berries too, that trail mix. Standard 09 there. Looks like they jammed it in when they installed it. That's the O-ring. You put a little lube on that. Look at this guy fixed up. Got a lot of nice locking nuts on here. I'll give him that. Got nice hardware. Wrong case nuts, but the 8 millimeter stuff we'll be able to use over. And you know, I'll put my stuff on the main studs. All right. I need to try to get this thing out of the way here. Get this linkage out of here. This thing's got a set of cylinder heads. It's got very little cooling that goes through the cylinder heads. They didn't clean any of the casting up. So. We will do that, clean the casting up so some airflow goes through there. Airflow is good on an air-cooled motor for sure. All right. Now to get this stud loose. It has welded itself to the cooler. Well, they jammed the cooler over it more than likely, you know, pushed it down, and it is not happy. We're going to move that off to the side because it might take an hour to get that off. You know, sometimes stuff like that can slow you up. So let's get one cylinder head off of this side and see what we have for deck height. That'll tell us a good story on where our compression is at. Standard on the valve train. We got a 120 cam in here with no solid shaft rockers. Still got the wafy washer springs. Never recommended, guys. If you're gonna put a 110 or bigger camshaft in it, you should probably put solid shaft rockers and eliminate the wafy washers and the clips. These fall off in your motor and it's game over. A set of rocker shafts is like 50 bucks. You know, it's the little things. Sometimes guys come here and they force me to assemble parts for them, and I can do that, but I would much rather build the motor than assemble an engine. This thing is just disgusting inside. I don't know if you guys can see all this heat, dirt. The oil is all nasty. You got a half-eaten push rod there. I mean, that's about worn out there. That's about gone. That's gonna break. Aluminum push rods with a 120 camshaft. Probably should invest in a set of push rods if you're gonna install cams and motors. You know, it should be part of your engine package. You shouldn't build motors like this, because you know, you can't just put a cam in something. It's a cam, it's the lifters, it's the cam gear, it's the correct push rods, it's the solid shaft rocker kit for the rocker arms. And when you start skipping these steps, you leave yourself open to some problems. And if you want to do it for yourself, that's fine, but if you're going to charge somebody to do this, you should recognize some of this stuff and see what's going to happen. This, like I said, they got some decent parts here. Somebody put new studs on it, new set of cylinder heads, new piston cylinders, obviously. I don't know what kind of heads these are. They look like empty. We'll have to wait and see when we get them off. Oh my gosh, man. I'm not going to mention who built this motor. I sort of know who built it, but I will mention out stuff when I see it. They got washers stacked over here on this stud to make the distance up, because the stud's too long for the cylinder head setup, so they just put a bunch of washers under it to Alrighty. Alright. I got the standard one washer on these. The one on the end down there, the blind hole. Got the washer stacked up. Now, if you built this, I'll show you how to fix that if you follow along on these videos. Alright. silicone on the intake gaskets. Oh boy. You can tell it doesn't have a lot of miles on it at all. Look at the spark plugs they got in here, guys. You see the it's a long reach head with a short plug in it. So the spark's way down in here. You can't get any kind of flame travel or proper burn with the plug recessed in the cylinder head, 200, 300, 400 thousandths down in there. It's like a glow plug. Unbelievable. 043 heads, they're A&A castings, and we have a high rev spring with a chrome moly retainer. They feel very dense, not a lot of cooling passages here for airflow to go through the head. This piston has been hitting the cylinder head. The guy mentioned that the motor has a knocking sound in it. Now this is an 800-mile motor, guys. 800 miles, ladies and gentlemen. And there's some ladies have this problem too when they have their Volkswagen worked on. But this piston is definitely hitting the head. More than likely we have a rod bearing failure. Obviously we have no deck height in this motor. It's very tight. No spacers under the barrel. I would bet the compression ratio, I mean, I haven't done the math, but it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, 10, high 9s. And for a Type 3, that's way too much, for basically stock motors. What the guy wanted, a little more displacement and something that's very dependable. So that's what we're going to give him. We're going to fix this butchery, is what it is. So if he'd like to share with you who built the motor, that's up to him, and he's fully would be in his right to do that, being that he's bought 2 of these now and had the same results with both motors. And this is what happens when you just throw a motor together. I like to build them on, do a little math, make sure you got what you got. You can only get so much out of the parts. I mean, if you're building an all-out race motor, or you want some street motor that you're just gonna go to the track, make blasts with, and drive around the pits, you can give it 10-to-1 compression, 11-to-1 compression. But from my experience, I have much better luck building a motor that has super low compression. If you want some power, you just give it displacement, put some good cylinder heads on there. There's a couple camshaft choices you can make if the compression's low to get better cylinder fill. There's ways around the compression issue other than raising the compression of the motor and making it so narrow to tune. When you put all this compression in a motor, your timing is limited. You can't give it any timing, you can't give it any advance. You end up with something that's sluggish off idle and gets hot when you're trying to drive it just normal. And yeah, this is totally not what this guy wanted, obviously. He'd like to be probably at a Volkswagen show somewhere this weekend driving his car. He's already paid the money, he had his motor rebuilt, he did his part. So this is sort of aggravating. Maybe not to all engine builders, but I think if you're an engine builder, this would be aggravating to any engine builder. And the sad part about it is this guy's he's doing all kinds of business. He's just building these motors one after another. So I don't know if people just don't drive their cars, or they just, they buy a motor and it blows up and they just get disgusted with the Volkswagen scene and they sell it. I don't know the chain of events that happens, but this is a party pooper for sure. So we're gonna go ahead and take this apart, make it right, put the proper camshaft in there, and we'll do every step on video, of course. I want to document this, and obviously the guy wants to see what he has here, so we got everything glued together, so we'll get that apart. I want to confirm that it has an Engel 120 camshaft in it, if that's coming out of there. He didn't want to split the case. That's I can understand 100%. More than likely we have a rod bearing going back here. Don't know if it's an oiling issue from the oil sealer, or the oil seals closing up, or just from getting super hot, but it looks like we've had a failure on number 4 here. So we'll have to split the case, and we'd have to split the case anyway to address the camshaft issue. But I will guarantee you that it'll be a sweet motor when we put it back together, and it'll do what you want it to do, and we'll know exactly what's in there, and we won't have to wonder what this guy did. Just from what I've seen on the top of the motor, it's counterproductive not to split the case and correct the errors. If he's willing to make the mistakes at the easy stuff, there's more than likely his errors down here. So we're gonna pull this apart, seal it, make it not leak oil, and yeah, I'm gonna make this thing run. So look for that build video coming up. I'll do the part that nobody likes to watch. We'll tear it down, and then there's the cleaning of the parts, which will take hours and hours to clean everything, and then we'll get it all laid out in there on the table. We'll assemble it. I'll measure the deck height before I take it apart, so I know what spacers I need to get coming. And yeah, we're pretty much gonna, lay the motor out. We'll see what we got here for deck. We'll order our spacers up, and we'll lay out all the pieces we need to have a successful build. And the guy wants me to build the other motor so he'll have a spare, and I told him the goal is to have the other motor go bad sitting on the shelf. So I got a few really good questions on the last video about how long an engine can sit around. Does it affect the break-in lube on the camshaft, the assembly lube? And it 100% does affect that. I built the 2110, it sat there for probably 2 years. We pulled it back apart, and all the assembly lube that I put on the camshaft and the lifters had deteriorated and fallen off those parts. So it's not a really good idea to build your build ahead of time and have it sitting around on the floor. You can, if it's full flowed, you can use a pump system and pump it and get oil circulation, but you're going to lose that lube on your camshaft and lifters, the break-in lube that the manufacturer wants you to put on it. It will only cling to those parts for so long sitting on the floor. I think that they fully intend you to put the camshaft in, put the lube on it, and repeat with firing the motor up and breaking the camshaft in a pretty short period of time. So the other thing that we don't talk about a lot, if I put a camshaft in something, I always use break-in oil on the initial fire, and that oil is dumped out after the initial fire up, burst valve adjustment. I don't ever let a motor leave with the break-in oil in it. So break-in oil is for breaking stuff in. It doesn't have the proper additives and agents in it to drive on the street. It's for break-in. So it is a little expensive, but a camshaft's expensive too. And we haven't lost too many cams on this endeavor over the last 10 years on YouTube here. I don't think we've lost any camshafts, and I think that's probably because I tend to, you know, skimp on the valve spring pressure. I set it up as light as possible. If it's not floating the valves, I'm happy with it. You know, I turned my race car 8,000 RPM, and it's got a dual spring on it from Berg. You know, it's a old spring, probably from the 90s. I mean, they need to be replaced for sure. But anyway, I don't use them. I don't abuse them a lot, so that the spring seems to last a lot longer. Other guys I race with, they go through valve springs and wreck valve train all the time, but they're trying to squeeze as much as they can out of it. And not really interested in that. I like to build a little bit of longevity, especially on these street motors, man. These people do not want race motors. They want their car to run really good, and they want it to start every time they go out, and they don't want to keep rebuilding motors. This isn't part of the experience that they were looking for. So if you're building these crappy motors, stop it. You know, it's not that hard to do it right. So don't do this. This is bad. You guys have a good one. Hope everybody's doing good out there. And keep building those